Hi everyone, I am Anonymous Traveler. Today I will talk about the third D of Kali Yuga 4D survival strategy. And also, I will talk about the black hole cycle of the communal gravity of this world. Kali Yuga is especially difficult time for those people who have higher impulse within themselves, and I call these people solar navigators, the one who pursue the sun or the stars, i.e., the highest possibility in man. I already talked about the first D, which is a discipline, and the second D, drop or dropping, and now I am going to talk about the third D, disengage. By the way, if you are new to this lecture series, please listen to the playlist of Kali Yuga survival strategy in a sequential order. Last time, we talked about why it's so important to build up spiritual immunity against the destructive force of Kali Yuga, and why it's so important to maintain your center by the process of changing the bloodline or lineage in terms of spiritual attitude. Now, we are approaching the territory of disengage. After the second strategy of drop or dropping, the noble one or the solar navigator would be rearranged himself or herself in accordance with their solar impulse. But later, one will find oneself in a situation where all the things one has dropped or gave up trying to creep in again in one's psyche. This process is directly related to the current life cycle of communal gravity itself, which is turning into black hole-like supergravity entity. Everything in the manifested world goes through the cycle of birth and death. It's not just humans or animals. The gods and goddesses, angels and demons, and the entire multi-universes are subject to this inevitable principle. And the communal gravity itself is no exception. Of course, the communal gravity is not a living thing in a traditional sense. However, it is even more alive than any of us humans or gods, since it feeds on all the living things in the manifested world. At the beginning of a new world cycle, the communal gravity is not as strong as it would become in the later ages. During this time of relatively light communal gravity, the barrier between humans and gods were thin. Also, humans were able to communicate with beings with a different energy frequency than us. A good example is fairies. Those ancient legends of fairies are a story of a close encounter with a species with a different energy frequency. However, as the world cycle progresses, the communal gravity gets heavier and heavier, and humans no longer be able to interact with beings with different frequencies. I am going to call this unique heaviness the Gnostic black hole. Now, for an example of disengaging, let's assume you dropped a particular eating habit. Let's remember what we talked about last time. Last time, we talked about a country where nobody knows there is a connection between high sugar consumption and diabetes. But you are much better at observation, than any other people, and one day you realized that there must be some connection between eating a lot of sugar and diabetes. But let's say you were addicted to Turkish delight and it's your favorite food in the world. Turkish delight could be delicious, but it's a horrible thing nutrition wise. It is basically almost pure sugar. It has cornstarch as another main ingredient, but the ratio of white sugar to cornstarch is 5 to 1. It is equivalent of just eating a cup of sugar straight out of the bag. So you made a decision and stopped eating it. So you dropped or gave up this dangerous eating habit for your well-being, but there will be occasional moment of temptation. This occasional moment of temptation can be said as an occasional moment of a strong magnetic pulling process of the communal gravity. The magnetic pulling force of the communal gravity is much stronger in this time of Kali Yuga because now it is reaching the level of a black hole-like super heavy gravity. And that's when the third D, disengage, comes in. You have to stop engaging with a troublesome habit, whether it's physical or spiritual, and stand your ground without grasping those habits again. There are two ways to practice this disengaging process. One is based on non-grasping and let it disappear type of attitude. The other one is based on the warrior or swordman attitude, where you cut it down whenever it arises. One of the most horrible aspects of Kali Yuga is the force of communal gravity is much stronger than the previous age. You can see this interaction between an individual and the communal gravity as a pulling of a magnetic force. Pulling force of the communal gravity can be compared to the black hole in this particular time. And over time, this force will become even more stronger. And when the destructive pulling force reaches its absolute maximum, the black hole will swallow the entire universe and the current cycle of the world will end. Demiurge thinks he is so smart, but in the end, he is just another being completely enchanted and drunk by the pressure and the excitement, and thus he is not immune from preventing this downfall. By the way, Demiurge is not a being, but more of a position. That means in the next Big Bang, there will be another being claim the position of a Demiurge, and the current world's Demiurge will pay the price for all the horrible things he did. There are various domains beyond the Demiurge's reach, and they are so much better than this manifested world. And everything that is born has to die at some point, but Demiurge definitely make it faster and uglier. I will explain the relation between Demiurge and the wheel of existence in the future. And we are in this cycle of a downward spiral where the destructive pulling force of communal gravity is now turning into black hole-like entity. By the way, I have to clarify something here. This is not just a result of the greed of Demiurge and his archons. The part of responsibility also falls onto the people who are fully participating in the wicked screenplay of Demiurge without even aware of it. Demiurge is the one who created this evil system where he can create this illusion called the manifested world and trapped human souls and put them onto the screen of endless circles. We lament, we cry, we suffer to provide entertainment for Demiurge. By the way, let me explain further regarding the magnetic force of communal gravity. Let's think about a situation where you decided to cut down the sugar consumption by 80%. That requires entire rearrangement of your kitchen shelves. For the first several months, let's say you do very well. You are very excited and motivated by your newfound truth. However, human is a creature of habit. All those cooking habits with tons of sugar that you have adopted in the past could try to come back when you are weak, less motivated, discouraged, etc. That is because such habit is like an invisible structure that gives us a foundation of our daily routine, and we are discouraged or sad, we tend to drawn toward the familiar things. Going back to old ways could entice you with the sensation of familiarity, and that's why such force is even stronger in the time of sadness or disappointment. And in terms of the cosmic cycle, we are in the threshold of our communal gravity, turning into even more destructive black hole-like force. So, even after you drop those things that you don't want, those things will try to creep up because the magnetic force, the pulling force of the entire communal gravity, is much stronger in this time of Kali Yuga. So, you need to be ready for continuous attack of this destructive magnetism of the communal gravity with this process of disengage. By the way, disengage requires a sharp awareness of one's mind. And I have to clarify something here. One's own action toward the communal gravity used to have a more weight and power in the previous ages. But we are now living in Kali Yuga. When you push against the communal gravity, it pushes back much harder than the previous age. So this is why we need the third D of the 4D strategy, which is continuous disengage. By the way, I have an announcement to make. I decided to open Patreon again. I used to have a Patreon page, but I got really sick to the point of being impossible to do anything. It was a health crisis coming from my autoimmune disease. Since I could not be active, I closed my Patreon page. But now, I have regained some of my strength back, and I am able to upload regularly again. Therefore, I am opening up my Patreon page again. Those of you who want to support me, you can do so on my Patreon page. That's today's announcement. Thanks for listening and all the best.